Hey, I'm Selčuk. I'm also a founder based in San Francisco. So I don't officially work for Fiverr startups, but I started two companies, both funded by Fiverr startups. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend some time talking about paid advertising. How many of you guys have ever run paid advertising campaigns, like paid money to grow their stuff? Awesome. So I started two advertising technology companies in Silicon Valley, and I'm going to give you guys a brief overview of different tool sets you can use and what to know about it. I'm not going to go too deep into any of these things, but feel free to ask me any questions, or in general, I'm going to kind of tell you more about my story and what I've done. If you have other questions around startups and raising money and all that stuff, or Silicon Valley, you can ask as well. So, of course, this doesn't work to that. So my story in short is I'm a serial entrepreneur based in San Francisco. I'm actually not from America. I grew up in Istanbul, not too far from here. I'm Turkish. So I grew up in Istanbul, studied computer science over there, and then came out to the United States to do a master's in computer science, doing a Fulbright scholarship. After my Fulbright, they kicked me out of the country, saying go back to Turkey and share wisdom with the Turkish people. You can't work here. I was like, fine. So I went back to, because I couldn't work in the States, I went back to Istanbul and started my first company, which was an unpronounceable name called İletken. And what we did over there was, do you guys know recommendation engines, personalization, what that stuff do? When you go to Amazon or some other websites, they kind of predict what you're going to do and they recommend you stuff. So apparently doing that prediction is kind of difficult. So we built that software that enabled other retailers to recommend products. So it's like a SaaS business. We grew that in Turkey, but back in 2010, things were quite difficult in Istanbul to grow a business. So I was like, screw this, I'm going to the United States, I'm going to go to Silicon Valley. So I picked up my luggage, basically moved to Silicon Valley as an illegal immigrant.
Did you run away from Army?
Huh?
Did you run away from Army because you guys have to?
I did, actually, yeah. I did run away from the Army. I actually spent 5 years in the United States, and after, they actually forgave a bunch of people. Yes, I don't actually have to go to the Army, because I would make a very, very awful soldier. So I came to the United States as an illegal immigrant. I had this idea about starting this company called SocialWire. I got lucky and raised $2 million from a lot of the top investors like First Round Capital, Fiverr Startups, and others. And SocialWire became one of the larger Facebook advertising platforms that help online retailers like Zappos and Target and others. And what it does is if you're this big retailer, anyway, so SocialWire is one of the larger Facebook advertising platforms used by folks like Zappos. They have thousands and thousands of products that they're trying to advertise on Facebook, and they usually try to do these things manually with human beings. We're fire those human beings and use our software because we can do it better and more automatically. So we built that out, and then I started another company called Boostable, which was both backed by Y Combinator and Fiverr Startups. And what Boostable does is it partners with online marketplaces like eBay and helps their sellers promote themselves on Facebook, Google, Twitter. So if you're basically selling stuff on an online marketplace, and if you'd like to buy ads and you don't know what you're doing, use our company. And these days I'm just basically mentoring, helping out founders and stuff like that, and apparently traveling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about managing your marketing mix, how should you consider how much money you should invest in big channels, and how do you look at your goals when you're spending money. The second thing is, what are the most common acquisition channels for paid advertising? What are some things to know about them? Third, understanding mobile. A lot of these channels, you have to think differently in mobile. How many of you guys are building mobile stuff? All right, so you're going to have some fun. And fourth is emerging advertising platforms. So these are a lot of times some very popular advertising channels like Facebook and stuff can be difficult. because a lot of people are trying to advertise on those things, and it's always good to look at what's coming up and like other advertising channels that you might have. So you guys might have heard of the term performance marketing. So what is performance marketing? Performance marketing is basically you are spending advertising dollars with a goal in mind, and the goal is achieving an action. So the action might be getting a click, the action might be getting a sign up, the action might be getting a download, getting a purchase, and ultimately what you're really trying to do is you are trying to make sure that your lifetime value minus cost per acquisition is bigger than 0. So like the money that you make from a user is going to be larger than what you're willing to spend to acquire a customer. But you might have different goals in mind. So one of them is awareness, right? So the first thing that you got to do as a marketer is like, nobody knows about my product. Maybe they're gonna see my ad and they're not gonna download or anything, but like, let's get the word out. So a few things that what people do for awareness is they use like fan pages and they post stuff, they create content, they do PR, they go on newspapers and all that stuff. The second thing is acquisition. So you're trying to get new customers. So now that people kind of heard about your product, you're trying to get first-time users, right? You're trying to get them installed for the first time. You're trying to get someone to buy from your e-commerce company for the first time, and all that stuff. And a lot of the things that you need to consider for doing acquisition marketing is different than remarketing, right? The difference between remarketing and acquisition marketing is that somebody already bought from your company, or somebody's already like become your customer. How do you get more from that person? How can you get them to come back and buy more stuff? And a lot of the things that you need to do for remarketing is different than awareness acquisition. And what you want to do is, this is like, have you guys ever seen this funnel? This is like the holy funnel of marketers. So imagine that you have these balls, you're going to throw them in, and then you have a customer. So at the very top of the funnel, you have awareness. So a whole bunch of people are going to be aware about your product, so you're going to spend a bunch of money there. And then afterwards, a whole bunch of people are going to be interested about your product, and maybe they're going to become a customer for the first time or something. So you're going to put a bunch of money in there. And then a bunch of people are going to have the intent to buy your stuff. So, but they might not convert at that point. They will forget to buy your product. So you're going to really need to spend a bunch of money doing that too. And so we're going to talk about like these different tactics for different channels. And a few of the things I'm going to go deeper is Facebook, Twitter, and Google. Okay. So how many of you guys spent money on Facebook? Awesome. Facebook works awesomely. A lot of things. And this is a gear thing. So don't buy likes. Have you guys spent like trying to get like likes on your fan page and stuff like that? That's so they're not really worth much, because like Facebook had the strategy a while ago where like you could buy a little likes for your fan page, and hopefully you'll basically post stuff, and like the people who like their page are going to see that stuff. That is not the case. Facebook doesn't show your posts to your fans. They want you to buy advertising, so don't really waste your time. Just like buy ads and promote your posts and stuff to people in your target audience. So Facebook works usually great for products and services with broad appeal, because like a lot of people are using Facebook. It works really well for hyper local content or products. So for example, like Dom's example, like you're trying to sell laundry services to people living in like a zip code or something. You can do stuff like this on Facebook way better than you can do on Google. It's great for both generating demand. So people don't know about your thing, so you're gonna get people to hear about your product, and it works pretty well for generating this demand. But it also works pretty well for remarketing. So once people are interested about your product, you can advertise to them again and get them back to your product. And mobile works pretty well on Facebook, especially if you have like an app and you're trying to get downloads or you're trying to get people back to your application. So Facebook calls this feature. So a lot of the things on Facebook are like vanilla, very simple, right? You can target people who live in Belgrade, like females in the age this and that, right? People who like skiing or snowboarding. So that's like like out of the gate vanilla features, but one of the things that works best on Facebook is this thing called custom audiences. How many of you guys have heard what Facebook custom audiences is? It's a pretty cool feature. So think about it as like email marketing on the Facebook newsfeed. So what this does is you have like, let's say you have like a list of 10,000 emails of people that you would like to target. What you do is you upload those emails as like a CSV file or like a spreadsheet or whatever. You upload that to Facebook, and Facebook matches those emails, phone numbers, or user IDs into actual Facebook users and targets those people on the Facebook newsfeed.
So if you already have the email, why go for Facebook?
Great question. There's a few reasons. A lot of people don't open their inbox.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. So like, yeah, suckers. So they don't open their email, and also, are you guys using Google's like inbox or like Gmail? So they basically put your thing on the promotions tab, and like nobody even reads your stuff. Like delete, delete, delete, delete, delete. And even if they saw your email, it's always like a lot of times it works better to triangulate across multiple channels. So if someone got an email and then got a Facebook ad and stuff like that, they're like, holy shit, I should really check this thing out. So you attack across multiple channels. So those are the reasons why it's good. So that works pretty well. Facebook custom, and another thing that you can do with custom audiences is you can do this thing called lookalike audiences. That is also awesome. So if you have, again, like more than 5,000, 10,000 users in your segment, Facebook does a pretty good job in finding more people like that. Right? Let's say that, for example, we'll talk about like Dom's laundry example, right? So you have, let's say, 10,000 emails of people who would be interested in a laundry service, right? And probably those people have like very similar traits. Let's say that Dom's user base are like students who don't have time and all that stuff. So Facebook knows a lot of information about these people, so they can actually find you more people like that. So it's a pretty good way to find new customers, right? So remember the funnel that I showed you? Like custom audiences works great for remarketing, or basically targeting people, and like lookalike audiences work pretty well for getting new customers, like acquisition marketing. Another thing that's pretty cool about custom audiences is that it works in mobile as well. So for example, one of the things that people do is, let's say that you have like a website with a whole bunch of people, and you would like them to download your app. Take the emails of people who use your website and like target them your mobile app, right? So you can do things like that. Another thing that works pretty well on Facebook is Facebook retargeting. So technically, this is called Facebook Web Custom Audiences. You might have seen ads like this. You go to like an e-commerce site, you browse a bunch of stuff, and then you go to Facebook and you're like, oh, these ads are following me. It's kind of creepy, but works really well. So this is like one of the best performing ad types on Facebook, because again, remember the funnel that I showed you? The bottom part is intent, right? So there's like awareness, interest, and intent. So the people in your audience here have intent, right? They came to your site, they tried to sign up, they added the product to their cart, they showed some level of interest. So targeting those people is like a way better bet than targeting anybody else on Facebook. The problem is the audience is limited, right? How many people, like, so you can only target the people who already know about you, so you can't really grow your business like crazy, but this is an audience that you should definitely target. So you can use Facebook's internal tools for this, or there's third-party advertising services like AdRoll that Dom mentioned you can use to do retargeting. So this is definitely a channel that you should include in your marketing mix. Any questions so far?
So I might skip this, but I'm really curious. Like, there was a way to target audiences that like a specific page.
Yeah.
Is there still?
No. You can target people who liked a certain page, but there was a feature that Facebook shut down that was working really well. So a lot of people, what a lot of people were like doing is they would. Do you guys know what graph search is on Facebook?
Yeah.
So you can like search people who like a certain page or whatever, get their user IDs, and then build a custom audience with those user IDs and like target them. That works really, really well, but like Facebook shut that feature down.
I think, I'm not 100% certain, but I think what you can do is scrape facebook.com email addresses and actually build a custom audience using those email addresses.
Oh, so you can do that, but that's probably like against policy. So if Facebook figures it out, they'll shut you down.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
You can only scrape. You can only scrape the people who liked or comment
Yeah.
their Facebook email address. And
Yeah, so
when you send the email to that address, it came to his inbox.
Yeah, so you can definitely do those things, but like what Facebook announced the policy is that you can only target UIDs or custom audiences that are in your customer database. So that's why, for example, you can, if you get like UIDs of someone's Facebook application, those UIDs work only specific to your application. So you cannot give those UIDs to someone else and target as a custom audience. Again, like a lot of things, like what you want to do with Facebook is like you're gonna try something if you can get away with it. Like do it until Facebook shuts you down. And grow as much as you can. Yeah. I didn't say that. Off the record. On recording. We'll edit that out. Yeah, don't tell us. I have 2 advertising companies on Facebook, please. Okay. So Twitter, more of a new channel. The cool thing about Twitter is it's not as expensive as Facebook because it's more new and that's less mature. So what we've seen with Twitter is it's basically better fit for events and real-time things like people. So you want the ads to be similar to why people go there. People go to Twitter to see like recent events and real-time things and all that stuff. So it works well for that. It supports app installs. So if you are trying to get app installs, you should also use Twitter. It works pretty well. You can do keyword targeting and all that stuff. And they also have a feature called tailored audiences, which is similar to Facebook's custom audiences. So you can do like remarketing, just like I explained on Twitter. And one thing that a lot of people do is like they run Facebook advertising campaigns and Twitter advertising campaigns in parallel and apply the things that you learn from Facebook to Twitter and Twitter to Facebook. So you can get more out of the 2 channels. Google, so this is like the age-old performance advertising channel. So Google works really well, but it has some downfalls. It's great for capturing intent. Again, remember the funnel. The Google is basically, like if Facebook is more in like awareness and interest, Google and retargeting is way down on intent. So people who you can advertise to on Google already want to buy your stuff. So it's great for capturing intent to buy. Conquesting works really well too. So conquesting is like, let's say that you're launching an Uber competitor. You can basically advertise to people who are searching for Uber and advertise your service. So you can screw with your competitors on Google. Another thing about Google is that unique products may not generate a lot of impressions. So if people don't know about your service or product, they're not going to search for it. So for example, if like a unique Kickstarter campaign type thing, don't buy Google ads because people don't know about your product. They're not going to be able to search for it. Can be expensive and very competitive because like Google ads work really well. They've been around for a long time. So if it is very high chance that somebody was already kind of bidding on your keywords in a very efficient way. And optimize for mobile landing pages because a lot of people are making mobile searches. So if you're buying a ton of AdWords and like driving people to like a mobile page that doesn't convert well, you're wasting your money. So consider that as well. Another thing that works well, how many of you guys are e-commerce businesses selling products? So this is only for you. So Google has this feature called Google Shopping Ads. So you just give Google your product feed of your products, and then you don't actually have to buy keywords or upload advertising creative.
Yes,
Google.
this doesn't work in Serbia.
This doesn't work in Serbia? Oh, that sucks. Sorry. This doesn't work in Serbia. But it works really well in the United States. The unique thing about this is that like you buy keywords and stuff normally on Google, so Google does this for you. So like, yeah. Why do you care? It doesn't work. Another thing that you can buy is like banner ads. Remember we talked about retargeting on Facebook? You can do retargeting like with banner ads like this as well. You can use companies like Criteo and others to do this. Retargeting display ads work really well. So somebody came to your site, looked at a bunch of stuff. They went to New York Times and they see the ad following them around. So this doesn't have to be on Facebook. That works pretty well as well. The creative really matters, so you should test out a bunch of stuff and see what works, because like a lot of times banner ads don't stand out as much as newsfeed posts, so the creative is more important. Affiliate networks, try this. This works pretty well too. So basically, advertise on affiliate networks. People are kind of signing up to promote your stuff and drive more traffic to your website. So this is like good for like blogs or deal sites. So content that's only available for like a short amount of time. One thing that you have to be watching for is like make sure that like they don't advertise your product or brand in websites that are not aligned with your brand. So like don't sell your products on a porn site or stuff. So that's not gonna work. So another thing that's important here is like mobile. A lot of the stuff that we talked about here doesn't work, or it works differently in mobile. And the main reason is, the retargeting and all this advertising technology on the browser works off of cookies. And like, do you know cookies? So it was like browsers track your activity using a thing called cookies. And cookies don't work in mobile. So that's why like these companies like Facebook, Apple, and Twitter try to use your user ID to track you instead. So you have to natively advertise in their platforms. So what you want to do in your mobile marketing is that acquire a customer, engage with them, kind of get them back to your app, get an app installed, get them back to your app, and then monetize somehow. So Facebook app install ads work pretty well. You can target by keywords or custom audiences. Like remember the example that I gave? People who go to your website don't have your mobile app. You can advertise to them using custom audiences. Yeah. Re-engagement ads work pretty well too. So for example, let's say that a bunch of people installed your app and you want them to come back to your app. What you can do is you can do deep linking. So you can say, come back to our app and stay at our hotel or something like that. So you're not driving an app install, but you're basically, someone sees the ad, they tap it, and then they launch into your application to a specific piece of content that they can consume. And this works pretty well. So let's say that someone's downloaded your e-commerce app and you want them to buy a product. When you run an ad like this, when they click the ad, they not only open your app, they basically end up in that specific product and they can buy that product. So, and one thing that's going to change very soon is that, like, one thing that's pretty shitty about mobile advertising, especially for driving purchases, is that when you're in like this mobile phone and you're clicking an ad and you go to like a shitty mobile browser and try to buy a product, that doesn't really work. And one thing that Facebook, Twitter, Google, and all those guys are launching is they're embedding buy buttons on these ads. So your users can actually going to be able to buy stuff directly on Facebook, Twitter, Google without actually having to go to your site, which a lot of people think that's going to drastically increase conversion rates because you're not really kicking people off like a social network. So there's like a bunch of emerging advertising channels. These are like the things that I'm going to talk about, but like one thing to keep in mind is a lot of popular channels like Facebook, Twitter, Google are usually mature and very saturated and competitive. Always be on the lookout for new channels that not a lot of people realize. This can be direct mail, right? Funny, but send people actual paper, like so that they know about your stuff. Not a lot of people do that well. One thing that's really happening in the US right now is podcasts, right? So get people to talk about your product on a podcast, because not a lot of people are doing it. But some things that are changing in the advertising world, emerging advertising channels is native advertising, but probably not available in Serbia yet. Pinterest, I'd be on the lookout for Pinterest. They're going to launch this thing called product ads. So you're going to be able to promote your products on Pinterest. So probably a lot of people who are going to be advertising over that first are going to get a lot of value out of it. Again, for e-commerce businesses, again, you can advertise your products on Amazon. And this works pretty well because a lot of people go to Amazon to buy products, and if your products are there, they're going to buy yours too. Instagram works pretty well for awareness type things. You can buy ads on Instagram and promote your brand and stuff. A lot of people actually pay influencers to promote their things as well. So A lot of people use native ads like BuzzFeed, so you can actually advertise your content or product as like a native article in BuzzFeed. There's like some examples of like new emerging channels. So not a lot of people are using those. Experiment with different stuff, see what works for you. In closing, what you're going to do is spend across multiple devices if your application or website is across multiple devices, and look at strategically how those things work together. Spend across the purchase funnel. That's important. So, for example, if you spend a bunch of retargeting advertising dollars, right? People who came to your site, you're advertising to them. That's going to work probably the best among everything that you're doing. But if you put all your money over there, you're not going to grow your company, right? So, but you can't. If you put all your money in acquisition and you're not spending any money in retargeting, that's not going to work either. So, you should be cleverly spreading your budget across these different stages in the purchase funnel and have them drive together. One way to think about it is like you're growing apple trees and you're picking up apples, right? So you gotta plant trees and then you gotta pick up the apples. So you gotta do both. Also measure. So it's not performance advertising if you're not measuring. So you gotta measure your goals and make sure that this is over 0, unless you have a lot of venture capital that you want to burn, which a lot of companies do. So yeah, so if you have questions, I'll give you my personal email address, which is here. Feel free to send me a note. That is at Gmail. I'm worried about so yeah.
I have a question about attempting to go viral.
Yeah.
For example, on BuzzFeed or Boardpanda or Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't mention it, but maybe that's a good idea to try if you're doing some interesting content, or you
Yeah.
can attempt to do some interesting content and try to go around, you know? Like, because I'm thinking maybe BuzzFeed, when it's promoted, for me, I'm less likely to click it.
Yeah.
But maybe if it's this story, it just goes around.
Yeah, the thing about like these things is that like the way that these ads are presented are it's not very easy for the user to see that it's an ad. And if the content that you're promoting is very similar to why people want to go to BuzzFeed, then your advertising campaign would work. So the thing to consider whenever you're advertising on native advertising channels like BuzzFeed or even Facebook is that ask this question: why are the people who go to the advertising channel going there? Right? You go to Facebook to discover new and cool stuff or like see what your friends are doing. So create content and promote it like that, right? So you're not really going to Facebook to be sold something. So make your ads interesting and cool. Same thing with BuzzFeed, right? You're gonna go to BuzzFeed to see funny stuff that's interesting and viral. So make your ads like that. For example, in Google, like people go to Google to buy stuff. So just sell your stuff, right? So think about the channel that you're advertising and make sure that your advertising is built for that channel.
Do you have any experience with LinkedIn ads?
Not personally, but I've worked with a lot of companies who do advertise on LinkedIn. In the United States, people say it's very expensive. And the right rail ads don't work really well, but the newsfeed ones work pretty well. I would consider doing LinkedIn if you have a high LTV, so you can spend a lot of money on LinkedIn, and if the type of customer that you're advertising to has like a specific job title or like an organization and stuff like that, so you want to be like super targeted. Consider that. And again, like a lot of things like Dominic mentioned, what you got to do is like experiment with a bunch of stuff. So spend a little money, see if it works, and then if it's working, double down on it. So a lot of the way you want to look at your marketing mix is that you have all these marketing opportunities. So you want to have like an experimentation stage. So try a bunch of stuff in a phase, and then see what works, and then change those things and keep experimenting and like find the things that work and double down on them. And then you go like, okay, these things work. I've scaled them. I've put them in a process where I can repeat them. Now let me go back to my marketing and like see what else I can put in there. So LinkedIn could be one of those. You should spend some money and see how it would work. And again, think about it like, why do people want to go to LinkedIn, right?
So this is specific. friend is doing CRM in a specific industry in the US market. So for AdWords, like buyer-specific keywords are like $40, $50 per
Yeah.
click, which is insane. So obviously he's not doing that, and like this is a specific part. He will try like CPA instead of CPC. I never have. Like, do you have any experience with that? Does that work in these situations or?
Like even if you're buying CPC, you're actually buying CPA. It's a performance marketer, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just changes the bidding structure. Like it really changes from context situation to situation. Your friend should like test two things and see which one's better.
You're basically only like taking out of the equation the like conversion that happens on your website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like, whatever advertising you're doing, what you have to do is like you have to look at your. So there's like people who see the ad, people who click the ad, people who go to your site and perform a certain action. Each time like event happens, it's like again, remember the funnel. Like people like less and less and less and less people end up performing that action. So at each step, run the numbers and make sure that you are over zero.
Is there a way to target on Facebook people by nationality, but for example, I want to target Serbs that are not in Serbia, that are from Germany, but I don't want to spend the money like I would spend gonna target.
Immigrants, immigrants.
So Serbs who are not in Serbia,
Yes,
you should be able to do that.
But to pay the price,
You can
like
get
I target the
Yeah.
Serbia country.
Well, no.
Connection target by language.
Language and location.
Yeah.
Language, Serbian location.
€1
Yeah.
per click.
Yeah.
So it's
That should be fairly easy.
So, my personal comment and one very short question. Regarding to this buy button, because you're coming from USA, there is a lot of things about security, about personal data, about your credit card.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing one big issue regarding to this. If I don't want to maybe to connect, not even I. Maybe a lot of people don't want to connect their personal account
Yeah.
in the bank with this social media account.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing this little bit,
Yeah, really-
maybe really big issue about the marketers, about
Yeah.
the companies.
Really good
In order
question.
To reach this.
Be very valid concern, and also Zuckerberg is concerned about too. That's why he hired the president of PayPal as the head of Messenger. So Facebook's strategy over there is that. Are you guys using Messenger on Facebook? You know that you can send money to your friends, right?
Yes.
So the reason why you can send money to your friends is that Facebook wants your credit card. So like Google's trying to do the same, Facebook's trying to do the same. We'll see if that plays out, but like Facebook is going to try really hard to get your credit card, and then they're already testing this. You're gonna see stuff on the newsfeed which is like you're gonna see like a button that says buy now, and when you click, Facebook is going to ask your credit card, and if your credit card is already tied to Facebook, you're going to be able to complete the purchase right away. Think about your App Store experience on iPhone, right? When you like find an app, you then enter your credit card. So Facebook and Google and Twitter wants the performance advertising experience on their channel is very much similar to Apple's.
And the question is, what kind of lyrics you're writing?
Say again?
Because I saw in your presentation.
Oh yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter. I went to the conservatory in Italy for like a couple of years, and I had a recording band in New York City, and I actually play a lot of shows in San Francisco as a singer-songwriter, and I'm actually starting a new band. Yeah, stuff like sounds similar to like Radiohead, Muse, kind of things.
Since more people are using ad hoc, is it better to go for content marketing, astroturfing, or just to go for the ads?
Say again?
Is it better to go for content marketing and astroturfing, or to go for the ads, since more and more people are using ad hoc?
Good question. You got to do both, right? So again, it changes. So for example, if you do content marketing, it's going to create, again, go back to the funnel. It creates awareness. And if you run paid ads, you can run awareness, but you'd be driving conversions and stuff like that. So content is basically not, it's like a mutually exclusive. So you should definitely do content. I wouldn't consider like using ad block as like you shouldn't kind of make you not want to run ads. It's the reality that we all live. Some people use ad block and they shouldn't, because I can't make money off of them. Because ad block. And that's bad for me personally. But like what people usually say is like, if you have ad block, you're not going to click the ads anyway. So screw it.
But on mobile, you actually can't have it.
Yeah, exactly. If it's native, you can't. On the web, it's more of a prominent thing. And a lot of people use native, so yeah, it doesn't matter. Any other questions? Cool, guys. Thanks for listening. This was fun.